this is great. It's exciting. I'm glad to have you all here, and I hope you're having a great session so far. So I'm not going to jump right into AI. What I thought I'd do was talk a little bit about how I see the market evolving, particularly as it relates to the challenges I think we all have in running businesses. I look at HR maybe a little different than some, in that I don't think it's people in HR's responsibility to run the company. I think people in HR generally help somebody in a job like mine run the company. So my job is to set strategies, set direction, and for our team, our CHRO, is Joyce here? She probably wouldn't want to come to, no, she probably wouldn't want to watch me speak. But anyway, it's Joyce's job to help me execute my strategy. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I see sort of the market evolving, strategy evolving, and frankly, some of the challenges that I think they're going to evolve over the next several years. So why don't we go to the first chart. So we'll talk a little bit about the world from a company's perspective, what companies need today, and why I think HR is hard. I think it's going to get harder, and particularly as it relates to talent. I'll preview that I think in general, what CEOs work on to try to get companies to be great is to get strategy right, to get the operating model right that allows the strategy to be executed, and then frankly, get the best people you can. And you're going to hear as I talk a little bit, I think that's going to get a bit harder as opposed to easier. I'm going to talk a little bit about how technology can help you with that. Specifically, we're proud of ours, and how our technology is being built to help with some of these problems. And then we're going to do a demo. I'm going to be joined by Gretchen and Jack, and they're going to come up and we're going to do a demo. And then I'm going to shift a little bit and tell you a little bit of IT. I heard a little bit of, as I came in at the end, Tony talking about security. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how this technology environment that we're all sitting with today got to be the way it is. And it's a bit of a challenge, but I'll talk through it. And then we'll talk in the end about why this cloud thing, which I think is bigger than technology, is the way it is. That's my plan. So I'll see if I can execute it. I'm 3 minutes into this, and I've got 42 left. So, all right, let's start with what companies want to do to win. Now, if this isn't what your company's working on, I can't explain that to you. But in the end, generally what we're trying to do is grow the company. I don't know many people that have the strategy that's the inverse, let's shrink the company. It could be you plan to divest, get more focused, but in the end, once you get to your core, you want to grow the company. You want to grow earnings. You want to grow cash flow. You want to lower your spend. At the same time, you want to manage your risk. Manage risk, by the way, for all of you that have CEOs, I'm sure all of you do. This is sort of new. Used to be that if you could sort of get through the top ones, you were growing revenue, growing earnings, improving cash flow, this was great. But now there's this reputational risk that you've seen creep into corporate governance everywhere. A lot of it somehow comes around this whole issue of security. Are you going to get hacked? Did somebody get into your system? All of this stuff now lands you in front of Congress, can trash your brand, gets you into all kinds of trouble. So managing risk is becoming a bigger issue in boards than sort of ever before. And a lot of that revolves around this issue that the panel was talking a little bit about was security. We'll talk about that as well. So before I go any farther, that's a big deal. Get these core things right. If you don't, and I'll talk about this in a second, CEOs don't last very long. And we'll explain that. And then you've got ways to change the business. Change your business model, change your products, your services. The problem with these things is they take time. As I'm going to tell you, the activism in the market today doesn't give leadership time. It's actually condensing and compressing time to get things done. So if you want to do things like improve your products, depending on what industry you're in, requires R&D, requires people to build new products, can take time. CEO may not live long enough as the CEO to be able to see the manifestation of all that. So while there are new ways to innovate the business, the bigger problem today is there are other people with new business models attacking yours. You see that in transportation with what Uber's doing, Lyft is doing. You see it in hospitality with what Airbnb is doing. You can come up with all these different examples of disintermediation of existing business models that are challenging existing corporate models. So these are a challenge at the same time as companies are trying to do all of this. To win, as I recommend, you work on three things. Get the strategy right, get the products and services right, and get the people right. That's what CEOs work on. By the way, if a CEO tells you what I work on is going to CEO events, this is a bad CEO. And it's very easy to get distracted from these things, but these are the three core pillars of success of trying to run really any business. And I'm going to focus on the people dimension of this. Let's go to the next chart. A lot of data here, but I thought I'd try to take an opportunity. First of all, I'm explaining this to all of you, but frankly, it was fun for me to go do this work. And to go do this work to sort of refresh myself on what's going on in broad demographics. Historically, the US has been demographically. So for all of you, I'm sure nobody in here is a trained economist. Anybody here is a trained economist? Okay. When I went to business school, we used to talk about the economy. And when you went into economics class, I learned very early it was hard to defeat demography. So the three ways you grow an economy, right? Well, you don't know it, let me explain to you. First, you gotta have a lot of people. If you have more people, generally speaking, that's good. More people can do more work. Second, you gotta get them productive. Generally relates to education. They gotta be trained so they can get productive. Third, you have to be able to invest capital. So when you look at growing any economy, you gotta have people, you gotta have educational system, you gotta have capital. The US has typically had all three. We've had a very strong, I don't really like using this term, but it's sort of the popular term in demography, a fertility rate. But it really is the replacement rate of workers coming into the workforce versus the workers going out. Okay? So, and the US has typically been above 2. Meaning we've had more people coming in than going out, particularly in my generation, called baby boomers. That's changing. You could go down to all the reasons. I don't want to debate all the reasons why that's happened, marriage rates, all of this stuff. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's going down. The fertility rate now dropping 143rd in the world. Does anybody know, by the way, how many countries there are? If you're 143rd, do you know what the denominator is? How many countries in the world? Do you know, Kara? You don't want to guess, do you? No? Jack, do you want to guess? 204. 204. That's actually wrong, but it's a very, but it's a very good guess. And there's a debate between the Olympics and the United Nations, but it's about 210. And so 204 is actually a very good guess. I'm very impressed. Yes, very impressed. That's worth an ovation, sure. So don't do it too long. So anyway, so we're 143rd. That would be defined in demography terms as not good. So we're 143rd in fertility rate, so we have less people coming into the workforce. It's not terrible. By the way, does anybody know the replacement rate in Russia? 1. Let me give you my analytical conclusion of the future of their economy. They are screwed. They are screwed. Their mortality rate, do you know the average man's death rate in Russia? 58. You imagine men average dying at 58 with a 1 replacement rate. This is very hard because when you don't have 15-year-olds, it's really hard to then go get them. I mean, this is why demography defeats economics every time, because you just can't find 15-year-olds or 20-year-olds once you don't have them. Now, we've got a bigger problem in the US than just the replacement rate. We have the problem with our educational system. This is becoming a real problem. Our educational system continues to regress, and it regresses in 2 ways. And again, I don't want to turn this into a political discussion at all. In fact, I have no intention of doing that. But high school dropout rates have now gone over 25%. So imagine 25% in high school don't graduate from high school. I mean, your first reaction to most of it's like, what? You go to a city like Cleveland, dropout rates of high school are closing in on 40%. 40% of kids don't get out of high school. Now you supplement that with the problem in higher ed. Costs of higher ed continue to skyrocket. The cost of running colleges continues to go up. Faculties want to get paid more. People that work at colleges want to pay more. But the ability for students to pay more is very difficult. Cost of higher education has doubled just in a period of around 15 to 20 years. Less people can afford it. Discount rate, meaning the discount on the gross tuition, is up and now closer to 50%. This is an unsustainable economic model, if you will, higher ed in the US. So these models all have issues. And by the way, the thought that one, I guess how would you call it, candidate for president, that I have a really good idea, we'll just make all college free. I have no idea how that would work. Because the current model is unaffordable as we sit today. We can't make it less affordable, and you're going to start seeing schools do what? Close down. This is going to make, in the end, less trained people available for companies. You have another dynamic going on simultaneous to all that. By the way, I'm not trying to demotivate you. I'm trying to just try to make sure we agree on the challenge ahead, right? So as a result, does everybody know U.S. savings rates? It's really roughly zero. So yeah, it's very exciting. So people basically spend what they make. And the question you ask is, that sounds terrible. It's actually great. Does everybody know why that is? It's because people believe in the country. They believe in the country, they believe in the economy. The confidence level, particularly of my generation, was extremely high. This will work out. Whatever's going on will work out. I'll get another job. I'm confident in this country. And so people have spent money. And so now what's also happened is mortality rates, meaning we're all living longer. This isn't Russia. By the way, I have nothing against Russia. I don't want somebody tweet that I was bashing Russia and some Vladimir Putin sends me a note or something like that. I don't want any of that to happen. So yeah, no, none of that. I didn't mean any of that. So yeah, please, can we take that off the record? Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't reverse yeah. Okay, so we're the U.S., and we spend what we have. So people are very confident. So as a result, people are now living longer. I mean, mortality rates in some cases are into the mid-80s. You know, for women in this country, I think it's getting closer to 87, 88. I mean, these are crazy good numbers. So now people can't retire at 55. They can't retire at 60 and make it 30 years. So you're going to see a lengthening of careers in the marketplace. That's a good thing, by the way. You're going to be able to hold on to talented people longer. So this is good news. When you thought I only had bad news, didn't you? I have good news. So talented people are going to need to work longer. And to be very blunt with you, you're now going to have people in the workforce who are 21 years old and people who are 70 years old in the workplace at the exact same time, working for managers. This will be interesting. This will be an extremely diverse workforce in many, many dimensions, one of which will be just the age diversity that we'll have in our workforce as we evolve. Let's go to the next chart. So, we want to design technology that solves problems. And I'll tell you, HR is not an application, it's not a process, it's a whole bunch of different processes, it's a whole bunch of different applications to deal with a whole set of issues. Starting with the fact that all of us have to go recruit talent. We do. Let me just give you an example for us, Oracle. We've recruited, imagine this, 10,000 college kids in the US in the last 5 years. 10,000 college kids. And to be very blunt with you, how do we do it? We go to the college campus. We only go to about 25, 26 schools, and we go with recruiters. Now, wouldn't it be nice, and we'll talk about this in a second, but when we recruit, to recruit smart, meaning that everything we know about our employee base is in the hands of every recruiter every time they make an offer. Maybe all of you have figured it out, but in our case, how do we recruit? Generally by the instincts of the recruiter on campus. Not the most effective way I can think of, because I'd like to know everything I know. I'd like to know if students from the University of Michigan do better at Oracle than students from the University of Wisconsin. Nothing against either school. Please don't tweet that either. I also want to, thank you, Gretchen, please stop tweeting. So I want to know then if a GPA has effect on somebody's likelihood or probability of success at Oracle. Does their major have an effect? Does the hub that school gets sent to, if we send people from Michigan to LA versus sending them to Austin, does that change their likelihood for success? I can take you through tens and tens and tens of these corollaries. And guess what? That can all be done by the system, not done real time by a human. How do we train today? We take everybody, if you thought about by the way, let me go back a second. I'd love to have, when we cut our offers, we get an 85% acceptance rate when we cut an offer. 85% of the time, the person we cut an offer to accepts the offer. Wouldn't it be nice if we had done enough work that we could predict the probability of success of that person we were recruiting and prescribe, based on that profile, the discrete training program that person should take to increase that probability of success? What do we do today? And by the way, I'm not ashamed to say, we send everybody through the same training program. That sound like a great idea? No, terrible idea. But it's the best we can do, because we don't have the inherent data set tied to the process to be able to prescribe specifically, because what Kara needs, we may have the exact same probability of success, but for different reasons. And the needs she has versus what I have may be very different. And we should prescribe specific training curricula for me and for Kara to get our probability of success higher. So we want to train for success, get learning curriculum and tools that are designed for the way people actually learn and retain to increase their probability of success and be able to predict that success. We then have to make those people productive. We have to assimilate them into the company, and we have to give them the ability to get productive faster with our tools. And then, to be very frank with you, this problem of retention for us comes around several issues. What's the biggest issue we always have of why somebody leaves our company? They don't like their manager. Number one issue, often confused with the issue of, gosh, my comp is too low. Have you ever had, I don't know if you ever do this to your CEO, but our HR department, very, very good. They come in, see me and say, we have attrition of, X%. And I say, why did these people leave? Oh yeah, comp. Well, by the way, that's what they used to tell me like 7, 8 years ago. And I say, well, how'd you get that data? Oh, the manager asked the person in the exit interview. And so we have empirical data. This is really dumb as a process. So I'm like, okay, so let me make sure I got this straight. The person doesn't like their manager, but you had the manager they don't like ask them the reason why you're leaving. And the employee, of course, didn't want to say, the reason I'm leaving is because of you. I think you're not competent. You're not helpful to me. Of course they don't say that. They say something that isn't in the control of the manager. So number one issue is the manager. And the issue long run for us is there's a reason they're frustrated with the manager is the standard reasons. I don't feel mentored. I don't feel like I'm being developed. I don't feel like I have a career. The core issues that we see time after time after time is, I want to feel valued. I want to feel like I'm part of a winning team. I want to feel I'm contributing to a winning team. I want to feel I'm being developed. I want to feel I'm being mentored. And I want to feel like I have career opportunities. Comp, and I want to be compensated why all that happens, but it is not the number one driver. For us, one of our biggest issues continues to be that we have almost 18,000 managers in our company. And our people want to get promoted, and guess what? It's sometimes been easier to come into the company and join it as a manager than get promoted from within it. It's not always easy because why? Our managers don't necessarily want to give up their talent. You probably don't have this problem in your company, but generally, managers think about what first? Themselves. They think about their own performance. Why on earth would I want to share talent with another manager? My job, not HR's job, mine, is to make it an important moray in the company that your job is to develop talent, share that talent, and move that talent across the company. And my job is to make sure we recognize and reward for that. This whole issue at the bottom here, this retention issue, this development, career development, and by the way, I might add, I don't buy into this millennial sort of myth that millennials are so different from baby boomers. I just don't believe that's true at all. We survey our company's 40% millennials now. And when we survey them, we do a lot of this listen, evaluate, act within our company. And when we listen to them, their values seems to me like they want to have a great career. They want to move jobs every 3 years. They want to get new experiences. They want to build long-term capabilities. By the way, 35 years ago, so did I. And the value sets are really almost identical. There's some differences. They've grown up with different technology than I did, my generation did. So they have different expectations about how they work, how they communicate, and so forth. But the core value sets are the same fundamentals that the previous generation grew up with. Employees want to feel valued. They want to feel like they have a future. So the retention of these becomes a bigger deal. And as this environment I've described earlier changes, you're not going to want to, I don't want to sound crude about it, but once you get great talent, you don't want to pay for that talent twice. You'd rather be proactive and keep that talent than lose that talent and have to go get it again. So this issue of retention and our ability to help prepare to win over time is crucial. Let's go to the next chart. So again, for us, recruit the best talent. I mean, big job one. We've grown our company, in our case, from 90,000 employees to 140,000. By the way, it doesn't matter what the scale is, just a lot of growth fast. And so just the job of getting the mass of people that, any of us have to hire that are growing that fast is a big deal, but even harder when you want to get good ones. Not only need quantity, you have to have quality. This whole issue now about training talent. In our industry, I'm sure it's not true in yours. I'm saying this sarcastically, but in our IT industry, when I started in the industry, all the companies had training programs. I went off for 6 months and got trained on skills and products and all this stuff. It was great. And then over time, the industry viewed training as an expense, not an investment. And all these training programs got ripped up. What are we doing right now? We're putting them all back in. We're putting all training back in a program. We had none of this machinery 7 or 8 years ago. We hadn't recruited from the college campus. We hired all experienced hires. We've gone back to the campus. We find great, unbelievable talent in U.S. college campuses. Excited, quality people who want to work hard. It's so exciting. We go to the campus, and guess who's there in our peer set that recruits? Like nobody. Nobody shows up except us. This is great. They're all into this changing of the existing people, just rotating companies. And I think it's a bad strategy. But we had none of this. We had to start with recruiting. We had to start with the training program. By the way, we had none of the technology to enable all this, none of the processes to enable all this. So as we built out our HCM solution, we had to integrate all of this into our systems today. Listening to your people is a big deal. I'm going to tell you more and more. We've gone away from these monolithic surveys. Do you all do surveys of your employees? We do them. And we used to do this where we go out to 140,000 people, ask them 50 questions. It'd take forever to do it. We'd get a book back. Really hard. We've now moved to this model where we go to these much more nimble, quick surveys. All this thing about listen to our people, we evaluate it, then we decide, because many times our employees will give us feedback like, it'd really be good if we raised everybody's pay, 20%. And so, we listen. I listen to that. I evaluate that. I reject that. But there are things we get that are pretty good as we do it. And so it's important for us to listen. And when we listen, we want to make sure they know we listened. And things they know we advise on, that we then communicate with our people. And I think I've gone through this. Build careers and retain your talent. And I think you know all of this. And this, when we embed artificial intelligence, by the way, AI gets a fancy, everybody puts AI, into their taglines now, which is, put AI, say it 5 times fast, your stock goes up. And really for us, we tend to not talk about AI as a solution. We talk about it embedded directly into the applications themselves. So if you asked our CHRO, would you like an AI solution? She has no, she don't want an AI solution. What she wants is a better recruiting solution. As AI can help her and her team recruit better, now that's fascinating. When we get into a training learning module, if you can help prescribe more prescriptive training, that's very interesting to me. AI individually, not so interesting. So for us, embedding AI into the technology makes the technology and eventually our organization smarter. Okay, so with that, before I why don't we do a demo? Come on up, Gretchen. Come on up, Jack. The music's coming too. Yeah, all right. So I'm gonna be joined by Gretchen and Jack, and we're gonna do a demo doing what we talked about, predicting employee success. So Gretchen,
Yep.
Jack, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
I'm not sure why we have a chair on stage, but that's all good. Hi, everybody. So I am loving the conversations that are happening right now on AI. I have to tell you, it's the best buzzword that nobody knows what it is, so anything can be AI at this point. And we are now actually seeing RFPs that ask, do you have an AI system? Yes, what do you want to do with it? That's my first question back to anybody. Tell me what you're trying to accomplish. So what Mark was just saying about how do we have AI add in to your system? How do we make you that much smarter, that much more productive? That's where our focus is. So what we thought we'd do today is spend some time showing you an example, a vision of where we're going with recruiting. Now, many of you, I know, are current recruiting users. Hopefully, most of you got to some of the sessions today that covered recruiting. I heard it was standing room only in the session that Nagaraj and Brett led. But what we want to do is kind of show you the next generation. What happens when we take some of these concepts and we add in AI as well? So if I think about recruiting, there are kind of 3 areas where, wearing my former recruiting hat, now this might be old data, but where I think things get to be challenging. First is sourcing. I was in a one-on-one with a customer today, and I had the person tell me that they've actually decided that in the recruiting space, the sourcer is now the most important person in the recruiting process. It's not the recruiter anymore. The recruiter's job is to facilitate, to coach, to close. Closing's really important. But if you don't have that front end of the pipeline, it almost doesn't matter. So sourcing, and how do I do that? Really important. The second area where we have questions or concerns. What is the likelihood that we're going to actually close the candidate once we've identified them? Now, I know this has not happened to any of you. You've never had a manager sit down in your office and say, what I want for this job, which is, by the way, not that critical, but it's important to me as a manager, is I want someone from a top school. I want them to have worked at least 4 of our competitors. I want to know that they've had experience specifically with this product that only 5 people in the world know, and I want to pay this much money for them, right? And the recruiter goes, great, well, I'll get right on that because that's going to take me 9 months to find this person. So how do we identify who is most likely to close and really invest in the people who are going to be the right candidates for your organization? And then third, and this is something that Mark alluded to, is a question that comes up a lot. What's your confidence that this person is going to be a top performer? What's your confidence that this person's even going to stay through the first year? In today's society where someone's likely to have 12 to 15 jobs over the course of a career, getting them past that 1-year mark and actually to being productive is critical. So with that, kind of some ideas to think about, let's show you a little bit about what we're designing. Again, we're in the lab. None of this is delivered today, but we wanted to get your thoughts going, and we'd love some feedback on what we're talking about. Jack, go
Thanks,
for it.
Gretchen. So let's take a look. What's the challenge? The challenge is that we have lots and lots of people. Every person is an individual. Everyone's different. And how do we understand who they are when all we have in front of us is a resume or a LinkedIn profile? So let's take a look. Let's take a look at a candidate. Let's take a look at a recruiter. Let's see their journey as they move forward. So where are we going to find this candidate? Well, it turns out we're going to reach them where they are at. And in this case, for our candidate, it's on Instagram. So our candidate actually ended up on Instagram. They liked our company at one point.
Awesome.
Maybe we were on campus, and they said, hey, Oracle sounds good. And
Let me
so,
just ask, how many of you are sourcing on Instagram right now? There are like 2 hands up in the entire room. We just lost a really good person to Instagram, and it was a critical thing. The guy was found on Instagram, clicked the button, and a better company came in and swooped him up. It was really painful for us. So if you're not looking beyond your normal sources, your social media sources, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, sponsored, needs to be a focus. Sorry, please continue.
no problem. And here we are, right? So here's the Instagram page, and if you notice, we've got a little ad. Let's surf the wave. Join the hottest growing startup in Austin. So we go ahead, the guy clicks in on that, and here he is. Interesting little ad for a job. We've pushed to him. And he can also see other people linked to him through Instagram that he actually knows or maybe associated with that actually work at the company. A relationship's already developing between our company and the candidate right away. Goes ahead and says, you know what? I want to apply for this. And sure enough, we get his LinkedIn profile. He can take a look at it real quick, review it. Is this the right LinkedIn profile I want to use to apply? And go ahead and apply for the job. Simply submit the application. And that's important because we're actually going to use this content later by our neural networks to go ahead and select the person. He submits, and then we follow it up. We follow it up with a recruiting event. Right there at Franklin's. If you've been to Austin, you know this is a good way to land somebody, is give them some Franklin's. Goes to the event, and sure enough, other people that he may know are going to be going to the event. So at this point, we have a person in. We're starting to see activity. He's showing up to the events. He's interacting with us, and we're good to go. Now let's flip over and take a look at the recruiter. Let's see what she's experiencing. So she comes into her system. Here we go. Comes into her system, and there's our new user interface. And she's looking at her actions right there. And in this case, we're looking right there at the first one in terms of being a sales consultant. And she clicks in, and here's the new sorted list. It's a little bit different than you've seen before. And what are we showing here? We're actually showing a bunch of candidates, but in this case, ranked in the order of the candidates that the machine feels are going to be the best ones in the order to take the job. Why? Well, first of all, remember that resume? Remember that LinkedIn profile? We're actually taking a look at it, and we're comparing it using artificial intelligence, neural network technology, to the job description that we've posted. But more importantly, we're actually matching it to people that we think are going to be high performers. Because what we're doing is we're not just feeding in the resume and the job description and everything else, but categories and information across the capabilities. So we're looking at other people like that person who have taken jobs with us that have been high-performing sales consultants over time.
So Jack, if I look at this right now, what we've got is you got like 4 people in that most likely to accept category. And now you've got this line item that says least likely to accept. How are we figuring out who's least likely to accept?
So that's really interesting. We're looking at loss reports. Loss reports for people that didn't join us. That 15% that Mark was talking about. Where else did they go? And why is that important? Because we don't want to spend a lot of time perhaps chasing somebody that's not going to come.
So even if that manager says, well, what I really need is someone who graduated from UT, lives locally, that's my best shot, you could actually use this to say, actually, for this role, that's not the right footprint. We need to go someplace else because they're not likely to accept a position from us.
That's right.
Okay.
And you also see we also have a group of people that just don't match. Qualifications look good, but they're just not the right folks. Instead of the recruiter having to open up, these 10 or 15 additional resumes and go through them, right away we just trim her workload. So we can really attack that time to qualify, that time to hire on the requisitions.
Right.
In this case, right, high and to the right, that's good. Someone that's likely to accept, somebody who we already know is going to be a high performer, and somebody it looks like is going to stay with the company for a while. We're going to invest a lot in this person. They're going to invest a lot in us. Let's find someone that's going to be productive over time. And so if we drill in on her, we can see Amy went to UT, right? She's got a great fit. She's like our top 10% of our candidates. And right there in line are a series of actions that's suggesting to the recruiter now what to do. How can we help close this person, get them attracted to coming to the company? As Jacob was saying yesterday, help the company sell with them. And we can look at, for example, inviting her to a social event, find the influencer to contact. These are the actions that other recruiters have used to help bring candidates in. We give it right there to the recruiter, give her the aid, and let her get going.
Now, one of the things I do really like about this too is the ability for us to see what's the likelihood of the fit. She's in the top 10% of all of our candidates. She's in the top 10% of other candidates that we've considered in the past. So we know she's probably a really good fit. Now I'm just going to ask, how often do you actually get that kind of data when you start your recruiting process? How more likely is it that you're kind of going to, okay, there were 100 applicants, I'm going to sort according to sort of a fit against skills or qualifications, and then I'm just going to go by recency. Who are the last 5 that applied? They're probably still more active, and that's who I'm going after, right? Anything we can do within the system to make you more productive, to focus you to certain types of candidates, that's increased productivity for recruiters.
And so here we are, we're back at the same screen. So that's one candidate, but we got a bunch to fill. And here's our guy, Jack. I love that name, right? Here's our guy, Jack. And let's see how he fits. So sure enough, we can click in and we can see him, okay? And he's got a different set of actions. He's got a different sort of set of fit. But boy, there's a couple of things here, right? His time in the Marines. And we already know the types of things that he's going to be looking for. In this case, right? Maybe it's not the right job for him, but maybe we have an alternate job. Because our technology isn't just about matching a person to a specific job, but actually matching jobs to people. Because really what we want is we want Jack to come into the company. Which job he ends up with, well, we'll figure that out. But let's find a way to get him in.
And I think importantly here, we're starting to actually understand what is it that's going to appeal most to this candidate. So in the case of Jack, something about the way he responded, whether it was Instagram or other, is we decided it was better for us to send information about the culture. That's not something that necessarily you would show on your list as the next thing to do in most cases, right? But the system can actually start to identify based on your experiences, based on who he is, based on the way we found him, that these are the pieces of information that might make him more likely to re-engage and want to stay with us.
Okay, so we bring Jack in, we make the offers, and he comes in. And in fact, we've been running this for a while. So our recruiting manager says, well, I've got to tell my bosses how we're doing. And so why are we doing all this recruiting? Well, we're looking for it for different ways. So she takes a look, and we can see her metrics. There we go. So she comes into her system and comes in. And what do we see? Well, if we just go through these charts. First, average time to recruit dropping, right? Dropping about 40%. So our ability to bring people in, bring them in quickly, much reduced. Our productivity per recruiter up about 50%. So we're starting to get more throughput through our recruiters, so we're getting more and more efficiency in the process. And the more important thing from the business perspective, look at our monthly sales per employee. Because we're able to attract talent, because we're able to retain them for a longer amount of time, our average sales are going up. So our experience and our investments are happening, and overall our divisional sales performance is going up. These are the types of things that we want to do for our customers. These are the types of things you want to do for your business.
Right. So just to sum up, if you think about this, right, in terms of the time we spend recruiting, the time we spend trying to find the right fit, and the amount of time that we spend relying on a gut response of this person's the right fit, this is the right person to hire. Anything we can do to help guide you to that right group of people, to find the right person, that's a huge value. And when you think about it in terms of turnover, just looking at the turnover metric, I'm not going to take anything else, but if you are a 50,000 employee company and you have a turnover of 20%, that's what, 2,000 people a year,
Yep.
right? Just take it down 1%. That's 500 hires you don't have to make in the next year. What would you do if you didn't have to go find an additional 500 people? What if you took it down 5%? That's 2,500 people that you don't have to go hire. That's huge value. So anything we can do within the system to help you make a more educated decision, to guide you to the right people, to bring in the people who are more likely to be a fit and a top performer, that's significant value to your organization.
Great. And there's our guy, Jack Jones, overachiever, Baylor Bear. Mark, back to you.
Okay, thank you. So I can tell you from my perspective in my job, this is the kind of stuff I want us using. I want us to do a better job because the metric that Gretchen went through, this is a big deal. It isn't just the hiring cost of hiring an incremental 500 people. It's then when we lose the productivity of those 500 and then have to spend all the time to replace them and assimilate them and take them through that process again of making them productive. So this is, when you just do the math, this is a huge economic thing that as we can start to automate all of these things and begin to take the labor and the guesswork out of it. Now, one caution I give you about AI. AI is basically matching patterns. It looks for a pattern and then tries to match the pattern just the way Gretchen described and Jack described. I see this pattern. This is the pattern of somebody likely to be successful in the company. The pattern is based on previous data. So AI is not a replacement for leadership and judgment. It's helpful. It's really helpful, but it doesn't mean at some point in time there isn't requirements for leadership. This helps you. This doesn't eliminate the need for leadership, management, decision-making, et cetera. All right, thank you. I thought it was great stuff. And I was glad we wound up with the Baylor guy as opposed to UT, yeah, because obviously materially better school. That was a joke too. Please don't tweet that. So that was really a joke, but I prefer it not go out. All right, so the Silicon Valley. I want to tell you a little bit story about IT and how IT got to where it is and why it's so hard. And if you're in HR, why is it so darn hard to get your systems high on the priority list to get modernized? You know, HR, when you look at the rankings of new solutions, doesn't typically rank high on priorities to go get new features. Why? Let me tell you what's happened. Back in the late 80s, many of you probably don't even remember any of this, but in the late 80s, there was one company in IT. There was no real B2C, or if you will, consumer IT. IT was basically businesses. And there was really one company that did everything. There was one leader in microprocessors, one leader in operating systems, one leader in databases, one leader in middleware and all of that. And none of the answers to that was Oracle. The answers to that was IBM. Arguably the greatest company in the history of this country. Led in everything. These guys invented, I was telling somebody last night, they invented fractional geometry. Did you ever wonder who invented it? IBM. These people had some of the smartest people in the history of the country. And they led technically in sort of everything that was in the industry sort of in the late 80s. So much so that they got so popular that the Department of Justice started to look into it. And then this place, and their technology leadership began to wane. So historically, you had customers buying all IBM, every piece of the stack, and everything was integrated. There were no commercial applications. They were almost all homegrown, built by the customer along with IBM. That technology leadership began to wane in this place. The Silicon Valley started, sits in between two highways, only 22 miles long, 6 miles wide. That's Silicon Valley. But all these companies evolved and started to, frankly, beat IBM in different layers of the stack. A new microprocessor company started called Intel. New operating system company started called Sun. And by the way, it wasn't just them, they were the leader. A new database company started called Oracle. Middleware, Oracle took the lead in middleware. And so, by the way, it wasn't though just Oracle, it was Oracle taking the lead, but there were 2 or 3 others in the Silicon Valley at the same time. And customers love this. This was a procurement person's dream. We could get IBM out, we could start buying by piece parts, put people in competition with each other, get a lower price. So I started buying multiple types of servers, multiple operating systems, multiple databases, multiple types of middleware, and this was great. We hired big IT staffs to put all these little pieces together. A new category emerged called a thing called systems integrators. Never heard of this before. This became a $200 billion industry that we know today. Didn't exist. And it was done to supplement IT staffs to put all these complicated things together. Dial forward 25 years, what happened? You've now got really complicated systems in place. Many customers can't even inventory all the versions of all the different pieces of software that they have. Somebody was talking about patching as I came in. And somebody always says, how come people are so stupid? Companies are so stupid that they can't patch. Let me give you the answer. Because it's really hard. It's really hard. Because to patch starts with you have to know what you have. Then I have to mix and match each version of each disparate piece of code and know when to patch the right thing in the right place. And it causes this huge latency, 8, 9, 10, 12 months to get a patch through my system. 90% of all attacks are on companies that are late, more than 8, 9 months late in patching. This isn't because the bad guys are looking for the tough guys to penetrate. They go find the open doors that everybody leaves open. And it's a byproduct of what's happened in IT. So what's happened over time now is IT budgets have grown. IT budgets are flat. Almost 90% of the budget is spent just to keep the existing old stuff running. Hard to find innovation dollars. Meantime, your poor CEO is probably at a board meeting where the board of directors, who's got incredible, thoughtful help, says, listen, we're not going to get hacked, are we? And CEO goes, no, I don't think we're going to get hacked. And brings CIO in, says, we're going to get hacked. CIO goes, no, I don't think we're going to get hacked. And somewhere out of the meeting comes a PO given to a network security company, just to make sure what? You don't get hacked. And by the way, nobody wants to steal your network. Nobody wants to steal anything except your data. So more budget gets allocated to security than ever before. So now we sit with an expensive, difficult to upgrade, difficult to patch, complicated environment that, to be very blunt with you, is possibly dangerous. Dangerous in the context that for years we were told to build this open environment, these open systems. Now we have them, and they're very hard to maintain. So let's go to the next chart. That's why this, and I'll really end on this, but that's why this cloud is such a big deal. It isn't just about the technology you're hearing about today. What Gretchen and Jack took you through, that's part of it. It's more modern applications, more flexible applications, more capable, more features than ever before. But it really is the movement of all of this complicated work from on-premise into the cloud and transferring all of that hard work to somebody like us. Instead of having a system you can't upgrade, the upgrades are done for you. Instead of being difficult to patch, the patches are done immediately. All the data, instead of you trying to secure it, we have an idea, we'll just encrypt it for you. Our people won't even see your data. They'll move around encrypted files. By the way, some company might tell you, we encrypt too. We encrypt at rest and we encrypt over the network. You can keep the keys to the encryption on your premise. or you can give it to us. Either way you want to. It is, to the point of the earlier conversations, by definition, more secure than you could ever be. If you ask me another question why, I'll tell you. While most companies may have hundreds of different permutations of configurations in their IT environment, we have the grand total of one. One platform, one operating system, one database, one version of our database, one stack of middleware. It's a big scale, but it's one thing. Our job is simply easier. We auto-patch, we auto-tune. By the way, guess who does all that? The computer. It's all AI, machine learning driven. More secure. And so what's driving this is the why, is it just costs less. I don't know what Gretchen will tell you this year in terms of new features will come in HCM, but I'll guess 1,000 features will come in our HCM application that will cost you no more than your existing subscription price. 1,000 new features. The HCM programming team at Oracle is over 2,000 people. That's not the operations team, that's just building new features. So compare that to your, I don't know how many programmers you have on your IT staff adding features to your HR system, but that's the competition, is over 2,000 people. More innovation, more secure, and all of these new technologies built in as part of these next generation of applications. This is more than a fad. Just to give you some context, I made predictions about the success of the cloud over the next decade, like 2 or 3 years ago. And I actually said by 2025, 80% of the data centers in the United States will close. And it's going to turn out to be wrong because I was too slow. Last year, 12 or 13% of the data centers in the US closed, just last year alone. I said 80% of the applications will be in the cloud by 2025. We're at about 25% now. I'll prove again to be slow. And everybody thought it was something that's so provocative 3 or 4 years ago turns out to now be too conservative. And it's because of these reasons. It's not just about the technology, although that's a darn good reason. It's about the strategy, it's a business model, it's freeing up capital, it's making and turning risk from your problem and putting it in the hands of the pros. And so this is a question of not, is this going to happen? It's a question of when it happens. Doesn't mean you have to do it today, but it is going to happen. It's an irresistible force. It's macroeconomic as much as it is technology-driven. All right, we have one last thing, which is really just talking to you about what we're doing, and I'm not even going to present this to you other than to say our job at Oracle has frankly been to cannibalize ourselves. You know, we had a great business in 2011, 2012. We were really pretty popular because we were doing pretty well with investors, and we decided all of this that I just described is going to happen, and the only way we can lead it is to change everything in the company. And by the way, that's really hard. We're blessed with one person that owns 30% of the company. Without that, I don't know that you do this in the public markets. But we did. And really, it was to take our R&D. We had to add R&D because we had to build all this new software. The problem we had, for those of you that are users, we couldn't stop doing what we were doing. We had to add. We had to build 90 data centers. Because as you close them, we got to add them. So we've done all of this stuff to increase our R&D, rewrite all of our software as we did it. I hope you all have a great rest of the conference, and I thank you.